In this second part of the session, we are going to talk about traditional project management methodologies. As we said before, the traditional project management methodologies are connected with the situation in which the project objective is quite clear, and the project team has defined how they will reach that goal. So projects that usually employ traditional methodologies are projects in which little change is expected because they are in some way change intolerant. The traditional methodologies put the focus on delivering the project according to time and budget constraints and rely more on compliance to plan than on delivering business value. So the type of projects that usually are managed through traditional methodologies are those which have been done many times before. So the companies already have well-established templates on how to carry out this type of projects. Here you can see some key characteristics of projects that are usually managed by using traditional methodologies. This type of projects usually have a clear objective and a clear solution to achieve that objective. They usually have low complexity. We are not expecting many changes in terms of scope. The technology needed is well understood. The risk is low. We have people with experience and the right skills in our project team, and the project is mostly plan-driven. The waterfall methodology is the classical traditional project management methodology. As you can see here graphically, this method is linear and sequential, so the project plan and the development of the project will follow a logical series of stages. It's important to realize that each phase must be completed fully before the next phase can begin. And at the end of each phase, a review process takes place to determine if the project is on the right track. So you can see here that the different phases are well defined and they do not overlap. The waterfall methodology works pretty well when the requirements are quite well understood and fixed from the very beginning of the project. The project scope must be clear and stable, so we can work under the assumption that not many changes are going to be introduced. The technologies needed will be well understood, and we have enough resources and the required expertise in our project team. Also, the type of project that normally works well with waterfall methodology are relatively short in duration. Well, the second traditional project management methodology that we are going to cover is known as the PMBOK. The project management body of knowledge is a guide published by the Project Management Institute and can be understood as the sum of knowledge within the profession of project management. This guide includes both proven traditional practice and more innovative and advanced practices and knowledge. So overall, the PMBOK is a guide which means an attempt to provide a compilation of generally accepted project management information and practices, and since its first edition, this has become a standard among many project managers around the globe. The PMBOK identifies 42 project management processes that are classified into 10 knowledge areas, the areas that we were discussing in the first part of the session, and 5 process groups. Basically, these knowledge areas describe pretty well which are the key competencies that project managers must develop. One knowledge area, the project integration management, affects and is affected by all of the other knowledge areas. 4 knowledge areas are considered as core knowledge areas and lead to specific project objectives, which are scope, time, cost, and quality. And then we can identify other 4 facilitating knowledge areas that focus on the understanding of the means through which the project objectives are going to be achieved. It means human resources, communication, risk, and procurement management. 5 are the process groups that PMBOK identified. We have the initiating processes, planning processes, controlling processes, executing processes, and closing processes. As you can see, they are pretty connected with the classical stages for the project lifecycle. Here you have a more detailed explanation for each one of the processes. The initiating, which is connected with the scoping part of the project, the planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and finally closing, which include all the processes needed to formally close the project. And here you have the 10 knowledge areas with the key elements that must be included in each one. As you can see, it's quite straightforward to understand what is needed according to each knowledge area. And finally here, I'm providing a table which is very interesting to understand the connection between the project management process and the knowledge areas. So you can see clearly the different project management activities classified by knowledge area and process groups. So please check carefully this table in order to understand which are the key activities in project management according to the PMBOK and when they must be implemented according to the process groups in which they are included. And well, here you can see some advantages of using this traditional methodology. The first one is that this is a quite comprehensive approach. This is a very good starting point to understand what is required in project management. This methodology can also work to an iterative development environment, and it allows standardization of the project management processes across different departments. This is considered as an easy guide to project management steps because they are quite well defined throughout the different process groups. This method also provides the documentation needed, and it's critical in terms of discussing what works and what does not work in project management practice. Also, this is good at providing the organization with a good understanding of what is expected of a project team. Also, the PMBOK is connected with the Project Management Institute qualifications and the training provided. So it's good because in some way connect the methodology with training and the knowledge which is available. And finally, this guide is creating a community in which people involved in project management can share best practice, common problems, common mistakes, lessons learned, etc. But also we can identify some disadvantages from this methodology. The first one is connected with the project governance, which is to focus around the project sponsor and stakeholders. The second aspect is that sometimes this is considered too descriptive approach instead of delving into the main issues of projects. And the third one is that this method looks at the project as a single entity, and maybe all the complexities around the project and the stakeholders should be considered. And finally, we are going to cover PRINCE2 methodology. PRINCE is the acronyms for Projects in Controlled Environments. This methodology was established in 1989 And the key aspect of this methodology is that allows project managers to ensure that everyone has the right information at the right time to make the right decisions. This is a generic methodology which is used around the world. Prince2 was launched in 1996 and had a major revision in 2009. Basically, Prince2 comprises 8 processes with well-defined inputs and outputs. For example, starting up the project, controlling the different stages, giving directions to the project. The key features of this methodology is that the project must be driven by its business case, not by the plan, as for example was the case for the waterfall methodology. Also, this method recommends the division of the project into manageable stages. In terms of governance, Prince2 defines the role of the project board, representing the business, the customer and suppliers, and the different stakeholders' views. Other feature is product-based planning. This method focuses on results, internal and external products. And another good aspect of this Prince2 methodology is that this provides clear definitions of everything. Here you can understand graphically the Prince2 methodology. Basically, the first thing is to define the project environment. Then we have a serial of Prince2 principles that support the Prince2 themes, which are 7: the business case, the organization, quality, plans, risk, change, and progress. And here you have these 7 principles of Prince2, which are a continued business justification, learn from experience, define correctly the roles and responsibilities, manage by stages, manage by exception, product focus, and maybe the most important one, to tailor the methodology to the project environment. However, we need to consider some areas for caution. Obviously, as any other methodology, Prince2 cannot guarantee successful projects. And as I said before, according to Prince2, we need to tailor the aspect of this method to the specific context, organization, and size of the project. To implement successfully this methodology, we need competent practitioners, and we need the implication of the whole organization. Maybe a disadvantage of this methodology is that Prince2 doesn't consider project management soft skills such as communication or leadership, and does not cover specific software or particular industries. But here you can see a good number of advantages of using Prince2. The first one is that this methodology is pretty good in terms of best practice and governance. We can apply this methodology to any type of project. It's widely recognized and understood, recognizes the project responsibilities, provide a clear project delivery. It's designed to meet different needs, manages by exception, focus on viability versus business case, provide structured reports, ensures the stakeholder involvement in the different project stages, promotes learning and continuous improvement, is consistent, and this also provides some diagnostic tool. But we can also identify some disadvantages of Prince2. The first one is connected with the requirement of a high number of documents throughout the project lifecycle. The second is that the decisions are mainly made by the project managers, so sometimes this can lead to paralysis by analysis. Other important disadvantage is that this methodology doesn't include all the knowledge areas and detail that we can find, for example, in the PMBOK, particularly They're connected with procurement and human resources, basically how to manage and lead our project team. And finally, this is not too suitable to an iterative development approach, which differentiates this methodology from the PMBOK methodology. Maybe the main aspect of Prince2 methodology is tailoring. It means that for an appropriate use of Prince2, we need to ensure that there is the correct amount of planning, control, governance, and use of the processes and themes for the project. So the project team has to adapt the methods to the specific project, and it means adapt the themes, apply the organization's terms and language, revise the product descriptions, revise the role description, and basically adjust all the processes to match the above. Well, here you have a summary of the key points that we have covered in that session. The first one is that you understand that projects are characterized by uncertainty and that project management can be understood as the organized approach to meet the sponsor, the client needs, and deliver the required business value. That a methodology, in general terms, can be understood as a system of practices, techniques, procedures, and rules used by those who work in a discipline. We need to learn about the different project management methodologies because this knowledge would lead us to understand the best practice frameworks that we can use or combine together to get the projects done in the best way. There is no right and wrong methodologies. The best methodology is what makes sense and is most suitable for the project, project team, and client. And finally, we have been talking about some traditional project management methodologies that are usually connected with projects in which the objectives and the solutions are clear. And typical traditional project management methodologies are Waterfall, PMBOK, and Prince2. Here you have some bibliography for this session. You can check the reader list, and that's all. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in our synchronous session. Goodbye.